Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for December 16th to 22nd. This week I read 2 books, I watched about 4 things, I listened to a podcast, and I listened to 1 book. It's been a while since I've wrapped up a podcast on here, pretty much. I only listen to audiobooks because free audiobooks from the library. First this week I read Faith, the Faithless, which is the 4th volume of the Faith comics. I read the first 3 volumes last month and loved them, and I really enjoyed this one as well. I like her as a character, I like what's going down with her friends and trying to keep her secret identity. And in this one we had a bunch of her previous foes come together to form the Faithless, which is this group of people trying to kill Faith. It continues to have pop culture references, it plays with tropes, and I'm here for it. This week I also read the Queer Eye book, written mostly by the 5 guys who are currently on Queer Eye. I didn't really know what to expect going into this, I just saw that my library was getting it in and put a hold on it immediately, even though we wouldn't have it for months. And this is split up into 3 parts. The first section you get to know the creators of the show as well as the people that ended up being the new Fab 5. From there, each of them gets his own section where he talks about what he does on the show and gives you some kind of tips. And then in the 3rd section, you're throwing a dinner party, so they're giving you some of their favorite recipes and some tips to make sure that the dinner party goes off without a hitch. This is the type of book that's full of interesting tidbits about the show and about the people who are on the show, but it doesn't have much besides that. I won't say that I disliked it. It was interesting to read through and see the journeys that each of them had taken to becoming part of the show. And there are definitely some tips in there that people could use in their own lives. When one of them was talking about his life, he actually mentioned sexual fluidity and how he'd been with more women than men. And I got really excited because although the show is called Queer Eye, it might as well be called Gay Dudes. And I was really hoping there was somebody who at least had some sexual fluidity to him. That being said, I love everyone on the cast, so it's not like I'm complaining and want them to specifically replace anybody. That's not what I'm saying. Just, you know, perhaps in 20 years when they reboot this show again, maybe having some queer women or trans people on the show would be cool. As for what I watched this week, of course, because I was still at my parents' house, I definitely tuned into the Food Network and just watched a bunch of different baking challenges and people eating food that I personally can't eat but looks delicious. Again, I don't know why I do this, it's just so calming. And then of course I was eating holiday treats while doing it, so it's fine. We also watched the finale to the 37th season of Survivor. If you saw my last wrap up, you know that my favorite person went home in that episode, so at this point we were down to the final 6. And although I'm fine with the person who won, there was at least somebody in that 6 who I wanted to win over that person. We usually watch the episode the day after it airs on the Global TV website, and it just wasn't up for the longest time, so we had to find it elsewhere. And my best friend comes home from work that day, and it's still not up, but there's an article about who won, so she almost got spoiled. So I had this fun experience of her actually finally getting the show on the website, watching it, and sending me all her thoughts at the time, being like, oh, if this person wins, I'm gonna be so mad, and it was very fun to get a running commentary. Since I'm now back in Victoria, I also got to watch some more Steven Universe. This show is just so cute. I know I say that every time, but I don't really want to go into it and give you a deep dive analysis of plot points, because you should just go into this show, 1, because it's amazing and it's adorable and it's cute, and 2, it's queer and I love it so much. Steven is just the softest boy and he's delightful, and I love the friendships. There have also been so many times throughout the episodes that I've turned to my friend Steph and been like, hey, this would be a cool cosplay. Wouldn't it be great if you got like one person to be Farmer Steven and a bunch of people to just dress up as Watermelon Steven? And yeah, we have a lot of fun discussing those possibilities. Speaking of my friend Steph, if you missed it, I announced Read Your Shelves, which is an event throughout all of January. We're trying to read some of the unread books on our shelves because both of us prioritize books in the library because they have a due date, whereas books on your shelves, you could read them anytime if you remember to. So if you missed that, I'll link it in places. We have a bingo card, so there's 25 prompts. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I've already seen some TBRs floating around and I'm super excited about it. And then the last thing I watched was a World Juniors game live. Yes, that's a sports thing. It was hockey. You read one cute queer hockey comic and all of a sudden you're at the World Juniors. But for real, my roommate is a huge hockey fan. He actually used to have a hockey podcast until his co-host wasn't able to do it anymore due to a new job, and He had an extra ticket, didn't want to go alone. I went, sure, I will definitely go and watch the hockey with you. It was a fun experience. I enjoyed hearing the shh, shh, shh of skates on the ice and people actually hitting the boards. All of those sounds are things that you don't really hear when your roommate is playing hockey on the TV all the time. Although it seemed like everybody had to get up like 3 times every period, and I'm like, can people not just sit down for the duration of a hockey game? Which is only really a problem when people keep getting up and then I have to get up and then I can't see what's happening on the ice, and didn't anyone come to this hockey game to watch this hockey game? All in all, I'd rather just continue reading Check Please, but it was a fun experience. On to the podcast I listened to. My friends Rebecca and Sarah started their own podcast, which is called Every Kink in a Book, in which they read erotica, some of it very strange from the first episode I listened to, and critique it and talk about it non-judgmentally because they don't really have very many, as Rebecca calls them, oh-no-nos. They're very open-minded, and this first episode revolved around 2 different erotic novels that had to do with Santa kinks. Even from the first episode, I am learning so many new things that I didn't know existed. I don't read a lot of erotic literature, one, because we are socialized to believe that erotic literature and romance literature isn't literature and it's just chick lit and girls like it, so it can't be good. And 2, because I'm demisexual and usually books like that don't have much of a build up before people are just doing it. Which, if that's what they want, I'm happy for them, but it's just not for me. That being said, I can definitely see myself finding books or novellas through this series and reading them for myself to see how I react to them based on what these girls are talking about. They are talking some incredibly smart things about these kinks that I would have never considered. I would have been like, oh, people are into Santa Claus, that's nice for them, and moved on with my life. But Sarah actually had a theory as to how that played into BDSM culture, and I was just like, you guys are so great. I'm so happy I get to listen to you talk about this stuff. Sarah and Rebecca are also from the Hags, so I'll link their channel down below, and then I'll also link where you can find the podcast. I think it's also going on iTunes and all of those places, but I'll link where I listen to it. They also have a second episode up already, which I haven't listened to, but it's about Krampus, so more Santa-like things, but monstery. And finally, the book I listened to this week was Jane Unlimited. Now, I saw this one ages ago, and it seemed really interesting because I was told that you get these switches into different genres, and that does happen. However, I think that I gave the book a disservice, 1, by listening to it as an audiobook, and 2, because I was listening to it very quickly because I realized I hadn't finished an audiobook this week and didn't want to ruin my streak of finishing an audiobook every week. So this is definitely one I'm going to reread in physical form at some point, but I'll tell you about it now. This book is about a girl named Jane who recently lost her Aunt Magnolia, who's the person who basically raised her from childhood as her parents died when she was very, very young. Before her Aunt Magnolia died, she made Jane promise that if this certain person ever invited her to their house, she would go. And this isn't just some house, this is a house on a private island, like very rich people live there. And it happens to be that the daughter of the very rich people was actually one of Jane's tutors when she was in high school. So she reconnects with this person and they're going to have a gala, and the person says, hey, why don't you come with me, because I don't really want to go, but if you're there, at least I'll have somebody to talk to. From there we get kind of a mystery, and this house is strange and there's all these different elements that you're not really sure about. And then at a certain point in the book, it's basically like a choose your own adventure. I think there are 6 different paths you could take. And then in turn, Jane takes those paths, completes them, and then you go back to the first point. So you'll listen to path A and then listen to path B and listen to path C, D, E, whatever it was. I think it was 6, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't make note of it. And depending on what you do, things turn out very strange. You either get tossed into kind of a sci-fi element, you get one that's still very mystery thriller, there's different dimensions at certain points, and all of this is wrapped up in the idea of the multiverse, so there are infinite worlds in which infinite things have happened. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think that even if I had read this physically with my eyes, giving it the proper attention, I would probably want to reread certain sections just to see how it all kind of fit together with the different branches. I definitely gave this book a disservice by listening to it and trying to listen to it quickly. Not to mention, yesterday morning when I was trying to listen to it at the bus stop, there was a man about 10 feet away from me just screaming rap lyrics at the top of his voice at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and just... why? I was afraid he was going to get violent if I asked him to stop, so I just didn't and neither did the next like 10 people that came up to the bus stop. We all just kind of mutually ignored him. It was very weird. I hope he's having a good day. And that's it. Have you read, watched, or listened to any of these? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye.